This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about Scenes from a Marriage from 1974, directed by Ingmar Bergman. The synopsis, RJ, from Letterboxd. Johan and Marianne are married and seem to have it all. Their happiness, however, is a facade for a troubled relationship, which becomes even rockier when Johan admits that he's having an affair. Before long, the spouses separate and move towards finalizing their divorce, but they make attempts at reconciling. Even as they pursue other relationships, Johan and Marianne realize that they have a significant bond, but also many issues that hinder that connection. So, RJ.
Interesting.
This is one of those movies that's been on my radar for many, many years. We're doing this podcast, the Criterion Collection podcast, and there's these movies that come up. You see Ingmar Bergman, you go, oh, what are the other ones he's directed? And you see this one called Scenes from a Marriage. It's a title that doesn't really scream excitement, or it seems like, oh, yeah, that's a very descriptive title, and sign me up, please. And then you look at the DVD cover that they still use of a couple in bed. It has this sort of like buzzy kind of pinkness to it, and you're like, well, this looks dry. This looks like
a Noah Baumbach film.
This looks like every Noah Baumbach film. I wish I'd got around to watching Marriage Story this week, but it didn't happen. I wish I got around to rewatching Husbands and Wives, Woodrow Allen's film that's very inspired by the Scenes from a Marriage. I wish I got around to watching Scenes from a Mall, which is apparently another take on this. A lot of people have responses, I think, to Scenes from a Marriage. But I had never seen this before. I
didn't know that.
I had been wanting to pull the trigger on buying this blindly, but it's a very expensive, because it's like a super comprehensive set. Because for those who don't know, Scenes from a Marriage is kind of from the era when Bergman is working in television, making these television miniseries. So this, Fanny and Alexander, are both, when you look at it, there's essentially 5-hour-long movies that are broken up into several episodes. And a few years ago, I watched Fanny and Alexander for the very first time, and I just went all in and went, you know what? I might only ever watch this one time in my life. I might as well watch the television version. Because when you say that, it always sounds like, oh, the TV version. It's going to be like that Dune, David Lynch Dune, that's for TV. Like it doesn't have like good connotations, but you read a little bit about it and you go, oh, it was made for TV. And then the American cut is like the theatrical version. It's like a compressed version where they take the 16 millimeter, they blow it up to 35, and they take out a bunch of stuff to make it leaner. Which I mean, now of course I'd be curious to see how they cut it down. I don't know if it would make that big a difference. Ultimately, because I feel like there's a lot here that you could probably reduce, especially when you have entire episodes that are set in one room for like for 50 minutes. Yeah,
maybe it just needs to be rebranded as the Bergman cut, and then it'll get a HBO Max exclusive.
But it's been released.
Well, people don't know that though. It's called rebranding, Jarrett. Let me tell you about marketing.
Okay.
All right.
I see. You told me.
They're marketing. All right.
So as this film dawned on us, you had some you had some disappointment, some fears.
I was mostly surprised, Jarrett, and fear comes from the unknown. So I was like 5.5 hours. What?
No.
I said,
no.
What?
It's gourmet.
I was like, we're already watching over 50 movies this month. We don't have time for this shit. It's like we barely have time for one movie that's not Roger Corman. And it's like, what are we doing here?
And Next Generation, too.
And TNG watching has been put on hold, man. Way big.
So we made that decision. Hey, we're going to go all in and watch the 281-minute cut as opposed to the 169.
Yeah.
And once again, as with my experience with Fanny Alexander, I don't regret it. Yeah, this was a joy to watch, despite it being a absolute cringe fest.
Sure.
Because, oh man, I don't know. I don't know. You don't expect Ingmar Bergman to make something like this. And it's curious, like the things that it influences and like has spread out into, because this is, it's not Todd Solondz levels of like cringiness and stylization. It's just very real. It's so well observed, the interactions of people, but it's also very Bergman. When you look at other of his films, like Autumn Sonata, like, but that has this polish to it, this cinematic polish, where like you're watching a movie. This though, even like its episodic nature, like it just kind of lulls you into it. These minimal sets where like there's literally here's a white room with like a bookshelf up against it and a table and a desk, and we're going to play it out for like we're just going to act off of one another for 50 minutes, and it's going to be like the most natural thing in the world, and it's going to completely fucking work somehow. But yeah, I'm just going to say I love this movie. I love it. It's incredible. I'm glad I finally got around to watching it. I guess it more than lived up to my expectations. I think that the episodic nature of it, watching it this week, sometimes there's dread going into watching these things when you're like, I don't know if I'm in the right mood to watch this. I don't know if there's the right time to watch Scenes from a Marriage.
It'd be tough to say. I guess it depends where you are,
Yeah, but sometimes, boy, is it. It's a tough one, but So this is a story of this husband and wife, Johan and Marianne. They have children who you never see. They do not exist.
I'm going to jump in.
Yeah,
just real quick. I had a note of that because I think that's one of the best parts of this, is that they are parents, they have children, but they are never seen once, because I think it's like these are scenes of the marriage, Jarrett.
This
is about
marriage,
the relationship. And it's like, I know what you're saying. It's like, well, parents can't really separate their children from their relationship. And it's like, well, these guys do, because Johan isn't much of the parental type. So I actually think that's one of the strongest parts of this, is that it's like, you don't see the kids, because it's like, ultimately the kids don't matter to what's happening between them. That's my take. But
so, cause like if and this whole, like, 5.5 hours or whatever it winds up being, you don't see like more than 10 other actors. You see the one couple that they have dinner with, Katerina and Peter. You see the woman that Johan works with at the university. Yeah, like very like in this sort of like thing where she's like read his poetry, and she's like trying to be like really nice about how she doesn't find anything interesting about it, and he gets real mad about that. And then there's like I guess there's the journalist, the woman that's interviewing them in the very, very first scene. You get to see her. I mean, I totally forgot about her until I'm just looking at the credits. Right.
You get her mom.
You get her mother. Yeah, at the end.
You get her mother. You get
you get a colleague of his that he's like, hey, you really giving it to her? A real Jarrett type, as men do.
And that's you get a couple people on the phone, but
you get some conversations on the phone.
Yeah, but no one else really into floosh.
Yeah,
that's the Swedish version of floosh.
On a purely superficial level, do you agree that Liv Ullmann looks great with glasses?
I do completely, and I'm glad you say that, because you know who Liv Ullmann is, or you know who is the modern day Liv Ullmann?
Who?
Amy Adams. Think about it.
I'm looking at a photo of Liv, of her as a young woman. I don't know.
I'll do a side by side.
Okay. Well, we'll have some. I've got one.
Not just an appearance.
I've got one. I'll have to save for off the air, because I don't. Okay. But I've got one for you that like I was gonna message you and I didn't like. I didn't want to
Mhm.
ruin the movie because I was like, because I think one scene it would have tainted this, I think, for you. But I mean,
I appreciate you doing that.
yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So yeah, but yeah, she's so great, like in this movie.
Yeah.
Actually, like that's the thing. Like to make this type of movie work, you have to have two actors that have like pretty great chemistry, are incredibly like settled into this role and like completely embrace it.
Mhm.
And yeah, they go for it. Like you don't like they completely seem like a married couple. You don't question it at all for 5.5 hours.
Mhm.
This movie, like I don't know what the differences are. This should be interminable. This should be
Mhm.
a chore and really not a great time to watch. But everything about this, the way Bergman shoots every scene, feels like completely exactly what it should be. Scenes
Mhm.
that should go on too long feel like they make sense. It captures all of the like the cadence and the way that conversations go back and forth, the arguing back and forth, those shifts, and like how they can go like from having these extreme emotions to like these lulls, and they go build up back up again, and they go
Mhm.
like, they waver back and forth. It's I don't know. It's a hell of a piece of writing.
Mhm.
I mean, it's very play like. It's debatable whether or not this is like film making in some ways, but which it
Mhm.
100% is. Particularly, probably one of my absolute like. I love the end credits of this so much.
Oh,
Oh, I like
this is a
every time
scene of
I was
Flumgar.
of a pharaoh,
Yeah.
and the zoom out like
Mhm.
from the zoom in, fuck, I like they're so like those photographs, those of those stills,
Mhm.
that footage is they're so beautiful, and it's just this
Yep.
long and Bergman reading it and like
Mhm.
this is the end of the this is the end of the third part of
Mhm.
scenes from a marriage. It's like
And as you look at this scenery from Flumga,
yeah
here are listen, or it's like you can listen to me speaking the credits now.
yeah
And he says, in the role of this. Yeah, I thought that stuff was awesome too. It's like you said, it's like I looked forward to it at the end of each one. I
yeah
was like, oh yeah. I was like,
it's over,
nice.
it's over, it's like this installment's over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me just take a look at the breakdown here of the episodes as we go. So there's six.
Okay.
There's 6 parts. The first one is kind of like, hey, this is the snapshot of them before things go to shit, and fuck it. Like I don't know that like interaction of them on the couch being interviewed by the
Mm-hmm.
journalist. Even then, the tension's there. There's the scene where they're having to pose, and as soon as they're finished the photographs, they like wrestle their hands from one another and like immediately kind of separate,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of go, this Johann guy, he's quite the boaster. This guy seems like
Yes, he
a
is.
bit much, and I kind of wonder. And this is like kind of a, I don't know if it's a criticism of like just these types of things, but it seems like the movie's very sympathetic to Marianne,
Mm-hmm.
pretty overwhelmingly, because she doesn't really like do anything too outwardly like out of the line or
Mm-hmm.
bad. Like she isn't like she's often like the victim of
Right.
the circumstances. Like the most like kind of like typical weird breakout thing that happens is after in the end of the third episode when Johann ends things, she makes the phone call
Mm.
to her
Friends.
to the family friends and tells them she just wants to talk to someone and lets them know what's happening, and they're like, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we knew it was happening, and they're like, she's like, and she's more mad at them than she is at
Mm-hmm.
Johann. That's very real. Like
Yep.
and it's like and it's so intense, and that's like that's like kind of like when she like you can see that because the
Mm-hmm.
whole time she's like looks like she's just been like kind of like a deer in headlights for like a huge chunk of it, and
Mm-hmm.
the denial of it, like her whole her expression behind those glasses eating
Mm-hmm.
her sandwich, and she's just looking at him, what's wrong, and you can tell in his body language what's coming.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Well, and I think that too, like, so you're saying like she's deer in the headlights for the first 2, 3, and I think that's like that's one of the big marks for it is that later in 4, 5 when he inevitably is just like, maybe you shouldn't have did that or whatever, and she's just like, it's kind of her growth where she's just like, I've never been able to be myself, and she's like, now I actually am. And she's like, she like takes ownership of herself, and she says what she wants to say, and that's her like little character development, right? Is like
Right.
those first few ones, she is kind of submissive to whatever, and then she finds her own kind of voice, and then she says what she feels, and she's just like, I'm better now. I'm actually what I am.
And,
So
and she's the only character. She's only one of the two that we don't actually see ever at work in her like law office.
oh no, you do. You do.
Okay.
Yeah, there's the one scene with the older lady who's filing for divorce. This is before they break up. It's like episode 2. Yeah, and the lady is explaining how she's fallen out of love, but
You're right.
she's stayed together for the kids.
And that's
the Blink-182 song.
Oh, you're totally right. Yeah, because is that the same episode? Because that's when you see him at his job too, in the black laboratory space.
Yeah, episode 2. He's some kind of like psychologist. It looked like,
Yeah.
based on his experiments.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That's what I thought from it, because it's like he's doing all the motion things, and I was just like, that's not really anything. But what he was like recording was her reaction to not being able to hit the things.
Okay.
And I was like, I've been involved in psych studies that I've on both ends, having been a subject and the person doing it. I was like, this looks like a psych thing to me. I don't know.
No.
I don't know. It could have been geography for all I fucking know.
I think you might be right there. I was thinking like physics or something. Or like something about like eyes, but no, what you said makes total more like, because they never address it specifically.
Yeah.
So in that, the first episode, like a huge chunk of it is the interview, and you get kind of this like this presentation. It's always the presentation of the happy relationship, and like even there's like, oh yeah, you have to give me a quote. If you don't give me a quote, I'll just write something. And they're just telling you, I'm going to make fake news.
Mm-hmm. She goes, I'm just gonna make it up, and then because you can for Liv, I call her Liv. She's like, I don't feel comfortable saying that. It's like, well, if you don't tell me, I will make it up, and it's gonna be worse than anything you could say. And she's like, okay.
I mean, there's like kind of like the maybe heavy-handed bit where like when they have to get up and leave, and then the journalist is like sneaking around, opens up the bedroom door, and you see all this crap everywhere. It's just like, if no one gives a shit what your bedroom looks like. So that's like the one thing you just like, that's my space. But it's like, oh, but why is it in such discord?
Is it a sign of something else? No. You mentioned earlier where you're like, at the start when they're being interviewed, their kind of body language.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, it's in the first like minute of this movie. The reviewer, before they take the picture, she says, she's like, look as if you're fond of each other. And in that very little moment, Liv Ullmann looks up, and there's like her face kind of loses all of her like emotion. She looks up and then kind of snaps back into a smile. And I was like, God damn, that's acting. Acting. John Lovitz style, baby.
Yeah. So the first episode is made up of 3 scenes, basically, because like you have the interview, and then you have the extended scene of the date night, which is like, again, framing and acting and like body language of like, oh, the couples, they're never on the same side as their couple, and there's like the weird tension, and like you're watching them see their like friends relationship play out really bluntly and awkwardly, and like, oh, this is like the worst time imaginable of people getting more and more drunk and caustic and hate filled, and talking about, oh yeah, he tried to kill himself, and I said, well, you should go do it, and then he came back out, and I was really sad. And you're like, oh fuck,
just do it already.
No, right, honey, you don't really mean it. It's like, I don't know if I mean it, but we can't do anything about it because our relationship interlocks us in this way where like I'm the brains and they're the design, and like if we separate, we're both fucked, and we're now locked. And then we get a little a pick me up where we find out, oh, Marianne, while they're in bed, in the kind of like, it's the DVD cover of I'm pregnant, and she sees how he gauges his reaction. He's like, oh, cool. Oh man, really? And she's like, yeah. Well,
what are we gonna do?
You're not enthusiastic about it. Well, like, no. I mean, I'll do whatever you want to do. Like, what do you think? She's like, well, I don't know. She have it. I don't know. And then, oh, I'm gonna have I guess they have an abortion, and fuck the scene where he comes in and he's like holds her hand. Oh, hey, how are you doing? I better go. Like, oh.
There's something I tried to screenshot too. Like one of the things I wanted to, he's like, don't worry. When we go, we'll eat a bunch of snacks. We'll watch TV and stuff. It'll be good. It'll be cool, man. Like, you don't gotta worry.
Yeah.
And I was just like, nice.
Nice.
He knows what she wants to hear.
Yeah. And then he's out. He's out.
All right. Well, I got some shit I gotta do. I'll see you later, babe.
Yeah. That's a great start to this series. You're like, oh, This is just going to get better, huh?
Mhm.
The next episode, of course, got the great title, The Art of Sweeping Things Under the Rug,
Yep.
where
Yep.
you're like, oh, is that in reference to like what's just happened to the end of the other one? But it's not even.
No, it's about their sexual relationship, Jared.
Yes. And
Ugh.
she's, how does it go again?
So in this is where you see her in her office, him in his,
Yep.
and you see what they're doing in their work life, and then you see them they come home and you see them being friendly and happy, and they make like one of the best looking like snack plates ever, and then they don't eat any of it and they go to bed, and it drove me crazy. But this is that like European thing I talk about all the time, where a lot of the dinners are just like bowls of foods that are like mixed in your hand. So they make this nice dinner and they sit down. Oh, this is also the one where she tries to call the parents and is like, we don't want to come to brunch on the weekend, and they're like, no, you're coming. And she's like, okay. And she's like, yeah, okay, whatever, we will come. And I think that's setting up a thing where like for her, where she, even when she tries to like take a step, she's kind of like pushed back. So you get that too. And then you get they're eating dinner and they're talking about other people's problems, and then he's talking about how they're not like romantic anymore. And you get like this scene where he says why he isn't, she says why she isn't, and then they both agree that it's like, oh, they're kind of like, we're on the same page with this. And but they're like, but there's still kind of an issue. And then when they go to bed, she's like, we can freak down if you want.
Well, what she says is, you can like have sex with me, like,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, and he's just like, no.
Yeah, and that's like it's kind of like what
yeah.
the mom says later in other episodes, where she's like, he got what he wanted, but I didn't really get much enjoyment out of it.
Right.
And then it's like the side of things, so it's like each person. But yeah, so she says that, and then he doesn't, and then shit, I think that's it, right?
Well,
That's episode 2.
there's a bit, because there's the things where it's like, they're leaving to go do things together. Like, he's going into work and he doesn't want to like take her with her.
Give her a ride.
And she's like going to make a phone call, and it's like, oh, what's going on here? He's got to make a phone call to the side piece. And the way that this is edited, again, it's scenes. Your brain starting to fill in those gaps of like, there's things going on that we're not allowed to see, and but you know that there's like, just because of their like what's going on scene to scene, it's all playing out. And then we get to the third episode entitled Paula, and this is the nice big, like, there's some pretty long takes in this. Where Marianne's at the cottage at their summer home thing, and Johan arrives early, and he's
Super
very
joy.
She's very excited and very chatting, and he's like, there's things weighing on his mind, and it's just that grim countdown to when he finally is able to say what he needs to say. And it's like, I've met someone else, I've done something stupid and fallen in love with someone else, and she's just kind of like going along with it, like, this is fine. And then like, she obviously is like, well, we can work through this. I can get around this. I can navigate this turn of events. And he's just like, nope. He turns on the coldness. He like he's emotionally shutting down. He's acting like she doesn't exist. And like, we're going to get through this. I need to pack my things tomorrow. And she's like offering, well, do you need me to get your shoes together? And where's the suit that you're going to need? Because I'm leaving tomorrow. We're going off I'm going to go live with this 23-year-old woman. And it's going to start tomorrow, and I'm done with you. And like, this is it. And
she's like, we have time to figure it out. And he's like, I am leaving in 5 hours.
And he fucking like snaps hard, throwing the book across the room, and just like, because he's just like trying to like, I guess, end it.
So yeah, this is actually where my only criticism of it is, like, at first I think it's too communicable, where it's just like they're too friendly about it, where it's very like he presents it. He's like, I'm having an affair, and she's like, okay, well, that's fine, but we'll figure this out. And he's like, nah, well, I'd rather not. And like, they're super like friendly about it. Just speaking for myself, I would be violent, Jarrett. Not physically violent, but like, I would be pretty aggressive about it. So like I was like, I don't know, but then
Well,
actually
but
I do think it works because later you see both sides of that. So
yes.
that was
keep in mind too. You
when
gotta
I
keep
was
because it's not you though, right? Because it's the
I know,
it's the Marianne character, and like she would be like, this is just like another shit. This is like another thing that another Johann move. And it's like, well, I got to keep and then of course it builds and gets worse. Like there's like a lot of like, because he doesn't even sound like he wants to do this. Like he at the entire time he's like, no, like, we're already fighting. Like, and she's like really temper, like this Paula is like, she's terrible, and but I'm committed to this. I'm going to be gone for 6 to 8 months, and there's no other choice. It's all over with, and there's the fighting to it. The kind of like that weird footage of like the car driving in to the cabin, and then when it leaves at the end, and the sounds of it, and like the staring off into space, it's like, oh.
No, you're right. And he even he shits on Paula. Jesus, he shits on Paula too. He's like, you wouldn't even think that she's attractive. He's like, I can't even explain it. He's like, I don't know.
Can I see a photo of her?
Yeah, and like that part is like, want to look a picture? Like that was one of the parts where I was just like, whoa. I was like, they are so like. They are way better about this than I would be. And you're right. It's like, I realize they're separate people, but
those are those characters' reactions. Yeah.
And it does like come out eventually too. Like you do get a little bit more later. So I was cool with it. Individual part, I was just like, man, I'd be way more into this.
You'd be punching walls, tearing your
Adam
shirt.
Driver style.
That's your inner ham.
Inner ham? Well, I mean, I'm a physical guy.
You want to talk about the Veil of Tears, episode 4?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about the Veil of Tears, episode 4, where we get, quote, the tax man, which I thought was super funny for some reason. He's like, yeah, I might leave, the tax man is on my back. And I was like, Mel Gibson? Are you watching this? You know what I'm talking about. I don't know if anyone else will, but you know about the tax man.
All about it. Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. Continue, bud.
Tell me about the Veil of Tears episode.
Oh, you want me to tell you?
Yeah,
about Veil?
Sure. Why not? I'll hand it off to you.
All right. What do we got here? I put pouring it out to a sleeping dud. Oh, that's where she.
Yeah. Well, they're like they get back together.
Okay, I remember now.
Well, they're not back together, but they're having like a catch up.
They have a dinner,
a rendezvous.
Because they're both like interested in. I think what they said was a year has passed, so they're having like a little bit of a rendezvous to see where each other are at. Johann is with Paula, and Liv Ullmann, I call her Liv. She is with a new man, which she kind of lets slip later, but. She makes dinner. David, yeah, and then later it's Henrik. So right now she's with David, and they make dinner. They're catching up a little bit. She wants to like talk about life and like things like this. He just kind of talks about himself and his relationship with Paul.
He wants to get down.
He wants to get down, and then this is where he starts to talk about like he says something. He's just like, I hate her. He's like, she sucks. She's the worst. He's like, I don't know if. Because I think here he's just like, I want to move back home, right? Or is that in the next episode?
No,
I think it's just one.
It goes back and forth.
Yeah. Well, this is where he starts to talk about how he doesn't like Paula yet.
But he talked about her. He talked about that in the previous one
from the
too.
start. Yeah. So I think what he wants his cake and to eat it too, Jarrett, as the expression goes. Mm-hmm. So they have their dinner. He's trying to freak, and she's like, you know what? She's like, I don't really feel like that. And she's like, can I share with you my journal? And he's like, absolutely. And you get this beautiful little like montage of actress Liv Ullmann and like pictures of her from her younger days and stuff like that. And I was like, this is such a nice thing that Bergman clearly wanted to do and like is part of the story too.
It's his wife.
Well, yeah, but like, you know what I mean? It's just his like nice thing. He's like, I want to show you.
And the writing is like, it's like that when we've talked about like with Oz Perkins in like some of his where like where it's like the writing in some of that stuff, like the poetic writing sometimes is like really poor in movies, and this is like, oh, this is actually like the good prose, like it actually makes sense, and you actually follow along. You're not just zoning out, and you're like, man, it's like, is she talking about herself? Like, did she write this? Did Bergman write this about for her character and for her, using this like montage of footage of her? And is this like autobiographical? Is this like about Liv, or is this about the Marianne character?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, I thought that scene was awesome. And whether it's about her, about the character, did Bergman do it? I don't know, but it's a wicked scene. So like, I think that's all awesome. And then you get the sad, like, what you expect. You cut to Johann, he's just asleep, and it's like, it's kind of what you think. But then, like, she gives him one more chance. They try to go for it. She's like, just stay the night, whatever.
There's like, well, while he's asleep, she makes the phone
David
call.
Calls. Or she calls David.
Yeah, she calls David, and he's like, why are you talking like that? Why are you whispering? Like, why are you so low? And she's like, well, okay, he's still here. Yeah, I'll get rid of him. Call back in an hour, because otherwise she was going to let him stay. And then she's like, hey, buddy, time to go. But then that passion starts coming back. It starts leaking into things. And then while they're about to bed down, the phone rings. He's like, oh, shit, he's not giving up. It's like she rang like 5 times. And then she gets up and just lets into him. Says,
she's like, I can't talk right now. And it's like, why? Because Johann is here and we're in bed. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what you want to hear?
That's the truth.
Yeah. She's like, that's what's happening, bucko.
Don't call here ever again.
Yeah. And she's like, I'm done with you, David Schwimmer. No more. I don't want any more of this shit. No. So you get that, and then I think that's about it.
Well, then you get the thing where, because there's like the will they, won't they, and then Johann does leave. And like, and it's like real. And then she's also got the letter from Paula,
right?
That where she's like,
his reaction, where he's just like, "What is she into now?"
Oh, this is vintage Paula.
That bitch, vintage Paula. And then, he's like, yeah.
And there's like they keep playing with that and the pulling part, like, well, they won't they? And then he comes back in and they because he's about to leave angrily, and then he doesn't close the door, and then he comes back in, and it feels like the most natural thing. And then they're let's just do this. Let's get back together. But it's like, nope, they're not going to. No matter what, he wakes up in the middle of the night. And
this is the one too where he starts talking about lying to Paula, where he's like, I'll tell her I went to the movies or stuff like that, and you're just like, this is just Johann's game, hey?
It's like just the behavior, and he doesn't know what he wants.
Yeah, he had the wife, and then he was lying to her for someone else, and then he's with someone else, and now he's lying to her about his old wife.
Layers upon layers.
Vintage Johann. Andrea's grandpa's name is Johann, so I thought about that a lot when I was watching this. He's a great man. He's been married for 60 years.
There you go. 5th episode, The Illiterates, which is another extended moment of time where our characters are in Johann's office. He has a cold, and it seems like it's been another like time jump. It's been like a year or so. Marianne is ready to start a new life and move on. Her hair, she's got a new hair. She's fucking jazzed about this. She's super happy. Things are going to get done, but she's like, you know what? Fuck. Let's have a quickie. Let me just like fuck you right here on the floor. So what if the night watchman of the university comes in? Won't he have a surprise? So they bang. And they begin having this conversation. The back and forth begins all over again. And like she sees right through Johann, like his dragging of his feet, and being like, you don't want this divorce. Like that's why you don't want this. And he's like, no, I don't want it. So what if I don't want it? She's like, Jesus Christ, we're back to this over again. But the whole time, it's like, I think he makes in the comment, the illiterates is like they're like emotional illiterates or love illiterates. Yeah,
emotional is I tried to screenshot that for you and your Spectrum stuff, but it didn't turn out, you know.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the fact that like, hey, remember these two have like children, and like even like at this point they are referring to like the daughters are even like distancing from Marianne. Maybe that's in the next part. But yeah, they're definitely like they have nothing to do with their father. He's just like not there, and he's like a non-presence. But this is also the episode that takes a harrowing turn because, but I think it even is like a surprise to Marianne, who's like goading him, knowing that like you can't do anything. But you think back to all the things that Johann's been saying about how he wants to hurt her, and do harm to her for like, and he keeps saying it, but he's like not going to do anything about it. And then finally he like gets up and he locks her in this room, and she's like, "What are you smiling about?" He's like, "Well, you look scared." She's like, "No, I'm not. I always tell my clients, you know, her being a lawyer, works with divorce as well, saying it's like never be alone with them, because things like this happen." And she's like, "I don't know. It's pretty fucked up." And then then it gets physical and weird, and then he like kicks the crap out of her a little bit, and immediately you get the like, "Oh my god, I feel so horrible about this."
My bad.
And she says, you know, the fucking horrible thing. It's like, I brought this on myself, and you're like, yeah, that's what people say, and it's like,
what people say.
I don't know, it's a disturbing scene, and I'm curious how for some people how it plays for them now, because like there'd be people who are like, absolutely under no circumstance is this ever acceptable, and I would agree with this, but in the context of the film, it's like, I don't know, it's this weird, complicated, fucked up thing, because people are weird, complicated, fucked up things. And this is also 1974. We're just like starting to come into an era where, don't do that. Because
maybe don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
I mean, if you ask the guy who left a review on our Naked Lunch episode, he would probably be fully on board with this, right? Like, you can't hold this against Johan.
Yeah.
You know, Jer?
I mean,
But I mean, that nut bar aside, I'm with you completely. Like, I actually think this episode, as difficult as it gets to, when that happens, like where you're kind of like, like, this isn't what we know about people anymore. It's like,
Johan, Johan's definitely he's now in the bad dude column.
He's definitely in the bad dude column.
But he was always the shit heel, like all along. Like he was always like, because like I think it's like Mary Ann is presented as the hero, which I feel like could be a criticism that like, but I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. I've seen people say like this movie isn't like feminist enough, even though Big Berman's like, well, actually, my intent was to do exactly that. But sometimes you're like, well, it shows that marriage is like it shouldn't even be a thing. People shouldn't get married at all. And like, so I don't know. You can't please everybody. But yeah, this is definitely definitely a darker turn for our Johan, who shifts from being the like kind of a, you know, this on equal footing protagonist to like, oh yeah, he's a dickhead. But and then you could also say though, because like by this next part, there's no real comeuppance to this, and like there's no like, but like I don't know if that's like, and there's none, like it's just kind of like, oh, you know, she's even like. Because like I guess like the thing is that this is the impetus that they actually, after it happens, they very quietly, without a word, sign the divorce papers. Whereas up to that point, it was never going to happen. But they realized if we don't sign these papers, this is what's going to happen, and it's going to be really horrible and tragic and violent and disgusting. Like their whatever love they had is now like they can't remain married because this is what it's become. Yeah. And it's like it's the only option, because it was just escalating for years, this hostility. Again, not justifying it, I don't think, but like just in that way where it's like, this is I mean, I guess his goodness is this, he recognized the horror, I guess, but I don't know. Is that good enough? It probably wouldn't be for some.
No, and I actually, so like I think like kind of what you said, I think this episode does a really good job at building him up as an asshole more than anything else, because like the way she goads him to like actually get to it, I think it's really good where he's like, wow, the department's out to get me, he's like, and she's like, you and your conspiracy theories. And then you have the big talk about, he's like, so I had some kids, he's like, I never fucking wanted them, he's like, and I'll have no part of raising them, he's like, I don't give a shit about those kids. And then you're just like, geez, man, you're like, Johan's kind of an aggressive guy. And then it just builds and builds to the point where like you can see it develop throughout the episode. You're like, each new thing, you're like, man, Johan's nuts. No. And then it's like, whoa, Johan's real nuts. And then it happens. And you're like, oh man,
he's getting fueled, liquored up, boozed up.
You're like, Johan's on the liquor. He seems like a bad guy. And then he builds to it, and you're just like, oh shit. So like I know what you mean, where it's like he doesn't really get there's no like there's nothing that comes back onto him except for, I guess, the only thing is that she actually says what she feels
Right.
and like kind of digs to him. So it's like she does get that one in. She gets beat up for it, which is bad. But she does get the verbal dig where she's just like, listen, you're a fucking loser who is like talking about his department is out to get you. She's like, maybe just be better. And it's like, you know what? Just do it. So I don't know. I do agree with you. Like she is definitely the hero of the story, but I never felt like it was too much. I was just like, I get it. I was like, she just seems like a nice lady. And I was like, I'm rooting for her. That was how I kind of saw it the whole time. But yeah,
I just noticed that there is a credit for an actress who plays their daughter or one of the daughters, Eva. But I'm like, if there is, it's for like a second. Like,
maybe it's by voice.
Maybe
because you hear a lot of voice. Maybe.
Yeah. Or blink and you miss it kind of thing, or look down for a moment.
He could, if she was in this thing, my guess is that it was either a kid running by screen or like a kid talking off panel.
Right.
So I don't know. I never saw any kids.
Yeah. And then we get to the last episode in the middle of the night in a dark house somewhere in the world.
That's pretty imposing.
And what happens in this one, RJ?
They go for a trip in the country. This is the one where
they're in their separate relationships, and then there's this whole thing that like they're seeing someone on the side, and it builds up to like again another rendezvous in a park, and they abscond in a car, giggling like kids, and they get along great.
They get along great now because they are not together anymore, but they're each other's mistresses, which is an interesting take. I mean, that's that Sid and Nancy mentality, It's like they're bad for each other, but that's what makes it so good.
Or they're good if they know that they're in different
places.
Yeah, different contexts.
Yeah. So this is the one where he has that aggressive guy. He's like, you nailing that broad? I would. And he's like, all right. And then his coworker comes in who he did have an affair with, and she's like, don't you love me? And he's like, man. Not really.
Yeah, he's doing the Johann shutdown.
Yeah, he's just like, I don't really give a shit. And then she does talk with her mom about her marriage, about her mother's marriage, and about things in general, which is a good scene. And then they do take off together. They go to their country house, but there's too many hard memories there, Jarrett. So they call a friend, and then they go to his country house.
A friend named Henrik with a paper clown thing lamp that we see later on, and we'll get there.
So you have that. They have a little dinner. They have a little extramarital romance, I believe is what the proper terminology is. And then things kind of just wrap up, I think, right? They're like, well, this is where we are now.
Marianne has her nightmare.
Oh yeah, she has her nightmare, and then he comforts her, and it's like the first time I think in the whole series that he is like doing a comforting thing for his wife, kind of, other than just like hanging out.
That he's mellowed.
Yeah, and he's showing growth and development, I believe, is what the bigwigs call that.
Right.
So you have that, and then I can't remember how it actually just kind of
it just kind of fades to black.
Yeah, and then you get another beautiful scene of Flurrigan or whatever. No. I was going to say it ends. It's truly scenes of a marriage.
From even.
No.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this, I don't know. It speaks to the power of this completely stripped down, minimal cast, all relying totally on acting and knowing how to place a camera and just letting things play out. So I think this is one of the better movies we've probably watched in a very long time. I even like. I agree. I put it above Tokyo Story and Birdo D in this last whatever 29 movies we've watched. But hey RJ, what do you think of Scenes from a Marriage?
Well, as a newly married man, Jarrett, I think this whole thing's horseshit.
Yeah.
It's not accurate. It's not relatable at all. There's
That's not my marriage.
It's not my president. That's what people say all the time, right?
I think so.
No, yeah, this thing's great, man. Like, I think there's so many. Even it's like, even if you're like, yeah, I don't do this or that or this, whatever. There are a lot of small things that I think are very relatable about just kind of like relationships or even just domestic partnership, Jarrett. There's like these little things. It's like, yeah, there's certain interactions that you have with each other that kind of do play out like that. Like, there's scenes where it's like, say, there's like minor annoyances from him to her or her to him, and then you kind of see it and it's like real subtle, and then they like move past it and you're like, yeah, that's a thing people do with each other. I do that with other people, not just my wife, but people that I'm close to. So I think there's a lot of like super relatable stuff in that sense. But yeah, like kind of what you said, the stripped down presentation, just this dialogue thing, like I honestly, I legitimately had 2 pages of things to screenshot for this, and I screenshotted every one, Jarrett, but they all came out black. So what are you gonna do about that? But
they hate freedom.
Free speech, bruh. There is a ton of great dialogue in this thing. I also love the Bergman touch. And it's not unlike the Lubitsch touch, Jarrett. But that little Bergman touch where one of the things I really like that he does is when he shows faces and one of them is looking into the camera, but between that person's face and the camera is another person's face coming in parallel.
It's like you've already seen the image I'm using for our podcast image.
I probably would have, if I could have got the screenshot of it, it would have been my Wednesday dudes post on Instagram. But because I just had to find a picture on the internet because I couldn't get a good quality one. But I love that. He does it in Autumn Sonata. He does it he does it all the time.
Oh yeah, that's just shtick.
That's just his shtick. But I think it's so well done. It looks great. Like the two like faces perpendicular to each other. You're like, oh, terrific. As far as like a story does, I think it's like pretty expertly crafted together, where it's like you see where they are at this stage and you get the foreshadowing, you get the little pieces layered and layered, you see where it's going to go, and then it does, and then it's kind of all built upon, it's all scaffolded together, Jarrett. That's a fancy word. Scaffolded together. And it's kind of like it's just all there for you. But yeah, it's like I said, I think it's super relatable. Even if you're just like, you don't have to be married to this. It's like, have you ever lived with another person? It doesn't have to be like a relation, like a romantic relationship. It's like, could have been a roommate or it could have been a family member or something. And it's just like, there are these things that kind of happen and there are these tensions that come from that. So I think that stuff is just, no, I really liked it, dude. Like I even said to Andrea before we started, because I was trying to convince her. I was like, it sounds really good. I was like, but it is like a 6-hour Swedish film. And she was like, no thanks. And I was like, I don't blame, like, because she is a good sport. She watches enough. But I was like, I don't blame you for not wanting to watch it. But when I was watching it, I think I did it right. I did like 2 episodes one day.
Yep.
3 episodes the next day, and then 1 episode the day after, and or something like that. I split it up like half and half, and I was just like, yeah, I was like, I actually really liked it, and I do think the episodic nature of it, where you have the one episode is like, say episode 5, the interrogation scene. It's just like it's one self-contained thing, and it's like, ooh, man, it comes in and it goes out, and it's just it's right on. Right on, baby. So like scenes from a marriage, I don't know, dude. Is my marriage in trouble? Probably. But as of right now, we're enjoying Swedish films and we're feeling great.
How about those Swedish berries, though? You enjoying those?
I do like Swedish berries. Do you like Swedish berries or Swedish fish more?
Berries.
Berries. Are they the same thing? But like, so the structure of a thing can change the way that you taste and enjoy it, right?
Texture. Texture is very important.
It's just like saying difference between curly fries, straight fries, shoelace fries, chunky fries. It's like they're very different things, even though it's all just a cut up potato that's fried. What about hash browns? How do you like your hash browns?
The way I like my Bergman films.
Sad? Sad hash browns?
Not the magic flute of hash browns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a stark difference where from some of the best films we've watched to one of the worst. Top or bottom 30 at least, the magic flute.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think Scenes from a Marriage is great. Like Scenes from a Marriage and Autumn Sonata, I both think are just like real good, like little character piece, or not even character, like just real life people, and it's just a little slice of that, Jarrett. A little slice. So good stuff.
What about actually before we do that, we should talk about Saraband.
Oh yeah, I watched Saraband today.
Yeah, you watched Saraband today.
I almost forgot.
I watched it late last night, and how unnecessary.
I was surprised by the narration aspect of it.
I was surprised by, like, okay, this is real dorky, but I was annoyed so much by like the lack of continuity. It's just like a complete mess because suddenly
it's all
Johann's like 86 years old and Marianne's 63, but it's like no, like he's 42 and she's 35, like in those movies, and now suddenly they've drifted apart in time as well, and his adult son is this like this schlubby dude who like sleeps in the same bed as his daughter named Henrik, who like lives in this cottage that's like, wait a minute, isn't this the cottage, like that was his son that he was calling to, like what, like it's suddenly becomes a mess. You're like, I guess none of this really matters, but like like I don't know, Scenes from a Marriage is like such a like this like iconic film, and now you're making a sequel, and you're like, I didn't even bother looking at the previous thing. I want to go with the feeling. I want to go with these feelings I want to explore, and I'm just like, oh, it's just like when old men make their last film and they're just not that good, but everybody loves them a lot because this is fairly well regarded.
I saw that, but I'm right along with you. I was kind of like, I don't even think it's a nerdy thing, the continuity thing. It's like it is a sequel to those movies, and it's just like you just threw out like half of the stuff almost.
Well, just like,
or you just mixed it up.
Or now it's just distracting because we both just came off watching it, and it's all fresh in our mind, and now watching it's like, what? Like it's just frustrating. And then they're like, who are these people? And like one of the rules of Scenes from a Marriage, I guess, is like it's always just the two characters. And now we're like, oh hey, here's some new characters that you don't care about, but here's some scenes, some weird, creepy scenes of like dad trying to strangle his daughter, and it's like, what? And I don't know.
The music's really weird in that scene too. It's like dun dun dun, and you're just like, was that necessary? But yeah, like I think like the interactions and the dialogue, it's like this is all good stuff. But it's like it shouldn't be. Maybe we need the Bergman cut of Saraband or something like that. Like what he really wanted. Like maybe Darkseid would show up or something. But it's just it's like a little out there a little bit. And I gotta tell you, I was annoyed by the fact that they made Johann a millionaire. I was just like, what?
All his problems were solved. He had an aunt that was a famous opera singer who died and left him all the money. And you're like, is this necessary? Like it doesn't change anything. Yep.
What just creates that like conflict later with his son asking. He's like, you want money? And then like you have just that like, I don't know, the weird, like, aggressive conversation that they have with each other. But, like, he didn't have to be a millionaire for it. It was just, I felt like they were rewarding Johann. But I was like, I don't think this guy should be rewarded.
Yeah.
So, Saraband, yeah, I saw it was highly regarded too. But I'm same with you. I was kind of like, maybe if I waited, like, 30 years for it or something, I would have. Right. Or like how far apart would this have been? Like 15, 20 years?
2003? 30 years.
30 years? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about Saraband? I was like, whatever.
I was barely paying attention. I don't know if my attention was just like not on it, but like, I don't know. Yeah. It should have sucked me in more. And I really was feeling, I'll be like, yeah, this is some lesser stuff. And I hated, like, I don't know if you were noticing, like the picture for the frame rate was really weird because this was like, this is a 2003 made for TV movie. And it's like, this looks kind of cheap in a way that, like, Scenes from a Marriage is like low budget, but it works so well because it feels very like playable, like, and it doesn't matter. But this is like is going for more of a cinematic look, and it, like, in the Liv Ullmann looking at the camera and talking to us stuff. I don't know. I wasn't like, I didn't like it that much.
Yeah, that's what I meant earlier. Like the narration by her, where it's like we're gonna look at a minute, and it's like, well, this is a long minute, bud. 30
seconds.
Whoa, I was kind of like, it's like, what are we going for here? What is this, like, self-aware? Like, I was like, this isn't needed. We go back to that Noah Baumbach movie that you made before. Let's watch that.
Exactly.
You know.
Go watch Squid and the Whale. That's got some divorce.
Sure, they all do, right?
And Jesse Eisenberg, Lex Luthor himself.
Lex Luthor?
Yeah.
Do you say Luther or Luthor?
I think I don't know what do you think I said?
I said Luther.
Luthor.
I say Luther also, but, like, you know, in the animated shows, they're always like Luthor, and I was like, Luthor.
So it sounds more dramatic, I guess.
Lex Luthor.
Hey, RJ, who hates Scenes from a Marriage?
Bad dudes.
Bad dudes. It's like Steven. 1 star for the TV version.
Whew.
A hard watch. I really didn't like it. So much emotional yo-yoing to a very unrealistic degree. Some of the dialogue was so realistic, but there was just too much of that it became a major burden bummer. The characters, mostly Johan, are really not likable, and I think that in the 70s they maybe were supposed to be.
I mean, movies have unlikable characters, right?
I want to hurt myself imagining watching a 3-hour movie version of this. Well, you just watched a 5-hour version of this. Yeah. I also didn't really like the simple filming style. I liked that it was simple, but seemed kind of poorly executed. The camera movements are shaky, and several times I thought, really? You didn't do another take to nail that zoom a little better? I don't know. I like those zooms. They're very powerful zooms.
I mean, Bergman, I think his high school nickname was Powerful Zoom, but not for his filmmaking, for something else, you know?
There's also so much film grain that it becomes distracting. I'm just confused as to some of the choices made on this. Well, it's because it's 16 millimeter blown up to 30. Oh my.
It's a 30-year. It's like a 40-year-old movie.
Well, no, and that's like when it's blown up like that. Yeah, it's going to have that, and I love it. I love the grain. Still, it's obvious this was a major influence on other stuff before trilogy, which is I was thinking about the Richard Linklater films. It absolutely is. So I guess other people enjoyed it more than me. Yeah, I guess so, Stephen.
I guess other people liked it. Let me tell you, Jarrett, about our bud Steven here. All right. Steve, his bio is that he wants to blow his way through as many movies as possible. So I question, is Steven even watching any of these films? He only has 8 5-star films, and they include Andrei Rublev, Ordet, Star Wars Empire, 2001 Brief Encounter, Lawrence of Arabia, something called Galaxy Lords from 2 years ago. That can't be good. Here's some half-star films, though, Jarrett. Half-star: Life of Brian, Snatch, The Dark Knight Rises, The Tin Drum, Armageddon, Mulholland Drive, and
Mulholland Drive,
and Star Trek V: The Final Frontier.
Oh, Steven.
We all know Steven. And you're the worst one, bud.
2 stars.
Sorry, they just gave Marriage of Maria Braun 2 stars also. So that's a bad take.
2 stars. Anyways. Jasmine Bonkney.
Okay.
I couldn't get behind this acclaimed movie. Sorry that I don't like how both characters suffer from their own god complexes and make this an intolerable watch. Frowny face. Crooked face. In parentheses, something. Yeah.
Is it frowny or is it crooked?
It's like crooked.
I see.
Side face.
You know what I think is crooked is Jasmine's 5-star films, including Call Me by Your Name.
Check.
Mate. Call Me by Your Name. Silver Linings Playbook. The 400 Blows. Roma. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. That's right, Frank Santoro. Portrait of a lady on fire. The only half star they have is Children of the Corn.
Huh.
So I mean that's fine. Oh, bad takes. 1 stars to Perks of Being a Wallflower and The Disaster Artist. Disaster Artist isn't a 1-star film. Come on.
And one more for you, RJ. X666 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 times 4.
Ooh, fuck.
2 stars. Yeah, man. I don't know. I prob should have paid way more attention to anything other than the damn subtitles. I try to at times, but it's not always easy on a first watch, especially with the insane amount of fucking talking. I always feel like I can't miss a word, even when I know the language. But, yeah, IDK about this. I think that it's probably done as well as it could be by Ingmar in the hands of a Hollywood producer and like a garbage variety director. It'd be even more awful. I feel like Cirque could have maybe made this what it really could have been, but then again, there's no reason Bergman couldn't do this. Is prob the best it can be? I just can't stand watching people whine. I'm sure if I paid more attention to anything but the subtitles, I'd like it more. I do like the sterile feeling, like everything's prob so well thought out. Just man, I can't watch people talk about wine for so damn long. Would have been higher if someone was murdered at the end with that Hitchcockian scene title.
Come on. We don't need that. What a strange person, Jarrett.
Yeah.
Their bio in all capitals.
Maybe they've been hacked.
I mean, it's possible. They only watch these old movies, though, from like 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
So their bio, all caps. These are everyman reviews of movies that ain't no everyman of today ever watching. Whatever that means. But strange stuff's like 5-star films or things like Spartacus, Don't Look Now, The Great Escape. What else we got in here? Come and See, Passion of Joan of Arc, Ben-Hur, Mon Oncle, King of Kings. It's like those are 5-star films, but you weren't on board with the Scene from a Marriage. And like their low ratings are just, I mean, 2 stars to The Hand. You know The Hand, right, Jared?
I know The Hand.
Scenes from a Marriage, Ryan's Daughter, The White Cliffs of Dover, The Young Bess. Like, what is this shit? The Hand is cool.
Hand's pretty neat.
So that's the big takeaway from this episode, right? Is watch Oliver Stone's The Hand.
Yeah.
Sure.
With
that's a good.
Michael Caine.
Michael Caine. I'm a cartoon artist. The sauce of a tangerine. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. It's been a long one. It's been a long episode. So anyway, yeah. Scenes from a Marriage. This gets the seal of excellence. The crusty seal, broken seal of creepdom.
It's good stuff.
Smothered all over the end and suckled on by her.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Hot,
movie
wet
is
mouth. Good. Drink it back. Feel the pain and the discomfort.
Just not totally on board with whatever you're doing.
Any final thoughts?
I don't like any of what you did, but the movie's pretty good.
After the break, scenes from a podcast.
What are those like?
I don't know, but I'm gonna hit you later.
Jarrett.